So we are reading from chapter 4, verse 22. Yadricha santushto dvandvatito vimatsaraha samasiddhavasiddhau cha kritvapi na nibadhyate. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. Very important verse. Purport. A Krishna conscious person does not make much endeavor even to maintain his body. Starting itself is one like bullet. Krishna conscious person does not make much endeavor even to maintain his body. He is satisfied with gains which are obtained of their own accord. Of their own accord means they, whatever comes, he is not endeavoring for anything. And whatever gain comes, he is satisfied. He then neither begs nor borrows, but he labors honestly as far as in his power, and is satisfied with whatever is obtained by his honest labor. So this is very important. Not over endeavoring also. So Upadeshamrita says Satyahara Prayasascha Prajalpo Niyamagraha. Satyahara Prayasa. Over endeavor should not be there. He is therefore independent in his livelihood. Independent means he just does his duty and that's it. Doesn't depend on anybody. Not like, oh, it depends on my boss or this person or that person. No, he's just independent. I'm doing my work. Whatever has to come will come. He does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Krishna consciousness. However, for the service of the Lord, he can participate in any kind of action without being disturbed by the duality of the material world. For the service of the Lord, there is no duality. The duality of material world is felt in terms of heat and cold, misery and happiness. A Krishna conscious person is above duality because he does not hesitate to act in any way for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, he is steady both in success and in failure. These signs are visible when one is fully in transcendental knowledge. Okay, we'll have to read this again.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
He does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Krishna. Can you explain more?
Yeah. So different ways to understand maybe a little bit of, because I've not read this kind of statement elsewhere in Prabhupada's purport, so might be speculating here. Anyone, because here his own service. Okay, so how do we understand? Anyone's service. So, for example, okay, so we can understand this way. Like, suppose say if there are a group of devotees engaged in some service. Now I experience this because I do translation service, right? So I have to depend on others. When I have to depend on others because each person is playing a certain role. But if that person is not available, so I mean, mostly devotees are all very busy, right? So they are busy in their, sadhana, then their work, home, etc., etc. So it's very difficult to get their time. No, in that case, it should not allow the service I am doing to get hampered. So somehow it has to, you have to try and do whatever is possible. Then Krishna will give some mercy. The other way is if somebody's service itself is coming in the way of our service. Can anybody think of some examples? Other service coming in the way of our service. Yeah, so for example, yeah, if suppose say we like we have two services, right? As in we have one service and then and then we are helping somebody else in another service. Now, if that other service hampers our own service, so for example, say we are um, slightly difficult to explain this. Anybody has any thoughts? Any way of you think we can understand this better? So, for example, say, yeah, we're asked to come for some service, say at 6 o'clock in the morning, which affects our sadhana. Sadhana is also considered as service. Service is also sadhana in that sense. I mean, a very broad term. So basically, it is saying if we have taken up any commitment, that should not get hampered. Why is Prabhupada saying this? Not very clear actually. Maybe we'll have to check with somebody, because that sentence somewhat is, I mean, to me, doesn't seem to be connected to previous and next statement. Okay, so that's the extent to which I have understood it. So we'll see. We'll ask some devotees. Okay, but okay, so there are other things also which have to be understood here. One is this verse is also saying how we have to deal with our work. So we should not over endeavor. We should be satisfied with whatever comes. Many times we are not happy with the hike that we get, with appraisal, this, that, and all that. So we should not be very much bothered about that. So we should be happy with whatever gain comes. And in fact, we should not even endeavor for it. Because here is saying that we should not even endeavor even to maintain the body. No, that's a very high stage. But at least we should not run behind sense gratification. And we should be free from duality. Free from duality, not just only in the service. One is in the service of Krishna. We have to be above duality. If somebody says the authority is saying, then we have to do without consideration of success or failure, whether we can, whether we know how to do, we don't know how to do, doesn't matter. We have to just say yes, and then depend on Krishna and go ahead. On the material platform, and this is where I face a lot of challenges when dealing with other people, family situations, etc. There are a lot of dualities. So one has to raise about it, what this verse is saying. Does not envy is okay. Does not envy means, oh, somebody else got something better, I don't have. I mean, that should be relatively easy to give up, because we know that whatever we are getting either is our karma phala, or is depending on the extent of our surrender, or is because of Krishna's mercy. So we don't envy others. Steady in both success and failure. Whatever we are doing, we do it for the pleasure of Krishna. Krishna knows what needs to, I mean, whether it has to succeed or failure. So we don't, again, success or failure is reasonably easy to give up that attachment to success or failure, which is one of the reasons why we should not be doing things like Gita competition, Gita chanting competition. These competitions, create this thought process of success and failure. So it should be just participation, right, and pleasure of the Lord. Yeah, so different people might have different challenges. So duality is there for everybody, right? And we should slowly and steadily start moving towards this, not even bothering about the body. I know many devotees are already on that platform. When I interact with so many devotees, they are not, I mean, they've already reached that platform. They're not endeavoring to maintain the body in any way, but it's a very tall order. we should aim towards that at some point in our life. And also, yeah, neither begs nor borrows, as in whatever is there is there. That's it. Live with it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this one statement is unclear. Not allow human service to happen. 4.23 Gata Sangasya Muktasya Gnanavastita Chetasaha Yajnayacharata Karma Samagram Praviliyate. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. So who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge? So knowing that I am Atma, I am part and parcel of Krishna, I am eternal servant of Krishna, and being situated in this knowledge. And because I'm a servant of Krishna and I don't belong to this material world and I am not this material body, so one has to be unattached to the modes of material nature. Meaning our natural material propensities, our likes, dislikes, our anarthas, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, we should be unattached. Which means that we should raise above that. And we should be situated in transcendental knowledge. Then we merged entirely into transcendence, which means that we've really transcended this material platform. If we can live like this, so this is a fully Krishna conscious person, right? One who is achieved, who's transcended the modes, right? Who's fully Krishna conscious. Prabhupada is saying, becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is free from dualities and thus is free from contamination of the material mode. So the goal has to be to become fully Krishna conscious. Now, fully Krishna conscious means both in terms of time and intensity. In the sense, it is all days, all the time, in all situations, and mm, being fixed in that consciousness of our real position. Then we can transcend. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position relationship with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primary Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Person, Vishnu Krishna. The resultant reactions to all such works certainly merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. So, this also, when we work on that platform, then that work also doesn't remain material. It doesn't remain like normal. It's not a material action at all. Right, so it is merged into work also has merged into transcendence. So the results are also merged into transcendence. So there is no question of karma phala if you work in this consciousness, even if you are doing material activities. Okay. 4.24. Okay, so now from here, might not have much discussion to do. There are a lot of different ways of doing sacrifice. Right, and what is the idea of this sacrifice is to basically transcend the modes. So Krishna suggests various ways. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So this is basically saying who is fully Krishna conscious, he is sure to attain spiritual kingdom because all his activities are fully spiritual. Whatever he is doing is spiritual. Whatever comes out of it is spiritual. Everything is spiritual, right? So in that, because everything that he is doing is spiritual, he will achieve the spiritual kingdom. So, but this is for one who is fully Krishna conscious, fully absorbed. Purport. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. The conditioned soul, entangled in material contamination, is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness, as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yagna. So here what Prabhupada is saying is, work binds us, work can liberate us, can get us out. So that has to be Krishna conscious work, just like milk and curds. This process is generally known as yagna, or activities simply meant for satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. So activities, sacrifices. So this is karma, work. What kind of work? Which is sacrifice for Vishnu. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahma means spiritual, Brahman. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendent body are called Brahma Jyoti. His spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahma Jyoti, but when the Jyoti is covered by illusion or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together. Brahman, the absolute truth, covered by Maya, is called matter. Matter dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth regains its spiritual quality. So that is why we talk about Yukta Vairagya. Use everything in Krishna consciousness so that it regains, matter regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yagna, or sacrifice for the absolute. In that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor, contribution, consumption, performer, or leader of the performance and the result, everything becomes one in absolute. That's the method of Krishna consciousness. Okay. So basically, everybody activities should be done for the satisfaction of Krishna, Vishnu. That is the practical aspect. Now, there's some technical aspect here, which is Brahman. So Prabhupada is saying that the absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. So it is just covered by Maya. So Maya means what? Thinking of that as different from Krishna. So when this matter is then used in the service of Krishna, then it regains its spiritual quality, because actually it is spiritual, because everything is coming from Krishna. So there's nothing material about Krishna. Everything is spiritual. Okay. So anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yagna. In that condition, everything becomes one in the absolute. So basically it is saying, Prabhupada is saying that we should just engage in as much spiritual activities as possible. When we are engaged in family duties, etc., if it is being done just for a matter of maintenance, without any desire for sense gratification, etc., then because it is then for the upkeep of a Krishna conscious family, devotee family, then that's also spiritual. So yeah, more and more we should just figure out how we can make our activities as Krishna conscious as possible. Long purport. I mean, there are a few more things, but actually the other thing is, There are various activities in Krishna consciousness. All of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, principle of Krishna consciousness is described. Actually, if you see the verse, it is all Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmanaiva Tena, Brahma Karma. So this Brahma Karma, the spiritual activities. So Prabhupada is calling this Krishna conscious activities. Now, some of these activities may or may not be done in the process that we are following. But we should understand still these are spiritual activities. We may not be doing it. It doesn't matter that it doesn't mean that it is not spiritual activity. So, and of course, spiritual means at the highest level, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. It is Krishna conscious activities. 4.25 Daivam eva pare yagnam yogina paryupasate brahmagna pare yagnam yagne naivopajufati. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. So Krishna is saying different things. So these are also spiritual activities. To the extent that one thinks about the demigods as part and parcel of Krishna. But others actually, instead of offering to demigods, they offer directly to Supreme Brahman. As described above, a person engaged in discharging duties in Krishna consciousness is also called a perfect yogi or a first-class mystic. But there are others also who perform similar activities in the worship of demigods. And still others who sacrifice the Supreme Brahman or the impersonal nature of the Supreme Lord. So there are different kinds of sacrifice in terms of different categories. Such different categories of sacrifice by different types of performers only superficially demark varieties of sacrifice. So actually, sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is also known as Yagna. All the different varieties of sacrifice can be placed within two primary divisions, namely sacrifice of worldly possessions and sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. Sacrifice of worldly possessions. This is Dravya Maya Yagna that Krishna will say in the letter. This is in pursuit of transcendental knowledge is Gnana, basically. So whatever we do to get transcendental knowledge. Those who are in Krishna consciousness sacrifice all material possessions for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, while others who want some temporary material happiness sacrifice their material possessions to satisfy demigods. And others who are impersonalists sacrifice their identity by merging into the existence of impersonal Brahman. The demigods are powerful living entities appointed by the Supreme Lord for the maintenance and supervision of all material functions like heating, watering, and lighting of the universe. Those who are interested in material benefits worship the demigods by various sacrifices according to Vedic rituals. They are called Bahu Ishwaravadi, or believers in many gods. But others who worship the impersonal feature of the absolute truth and regard the forms of the demigods as temporary, sacrifice their individual selves in the supreme fire, and thus end their individual existence by merging into the existence of the Supreme. Such impersonalists sacrifice their time in philosophical speculation to understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme. In other words, the fruity workers sacrifice their material possessions for material enjoyment, whereas the impersonalist sacrifices his material designations with a view to merging into the existence of the Supreme. For the impersonalist, the fire altar of sacrifice is Supreme Brahman, and the offering in the self being consumed by the fire of Brahman. The Krishna conscious person, like Arjuna, however, sacrifices everything for the satisfaction of Krishna. And thus all his material possessions as well as his own self, everything is sacrificed for Krishna. Thus he is the first class yogi, but he does not lose his individual existence. So yogis, some worship demigods for material benefits. Others worship Supreme Brahman and they want to become one with that Brahman. Prabhupada is saying one who is Krishna conscious does both. He offers everything, his possessions for Krishna. He offers his own self also to Krishna. And so he is the perfect yogi because these are imperfect. They're doing something which is all imperfect at different levels of maturity on the spiritual path. So there are atheists, then there are theists. Among theists, they will worship demigods. Then there is Nirakaravadis or Mayavadis. Then there is yogis. Then bhaktas. So they're all at different stages, and only the atheists who don't engage in any kind of activity, Vedic activity, they are the unfortunate ones. Others are all okay. They are just at different stages, and they will slowly and steadily make progress. 4.26 श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयान् अन्य indriyagnishu juhvati. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of senses. The members of the four divisions of human life, namely Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. Since human life is not meant for our enjoying sense gratification like the animals, the four orders of human life are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. Dharmacharis or students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. So this is that they sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control. So they control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is a basic principle of understanding. Therefore, the pure brahmachari engages only in Hare Nama Anukirtanam, chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's very easy to understand. Actually, if we go to a brahmachari ashram or basically temple inmates, they don't have a scope or for even talking. Vibrating of material sounds means even talking of anything apart from Krishna. I mean, unless they're engaged in prajalpa, which means that they are not really serious brahmacharis. But for us, grihasthas, sometimes, so many times we have to deal with so many other sounds. So what the householders do, they sacrifice objects of senses. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, meat eating are general tendencies of human society, but a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society, because that is the way for restricted sex life. This restricted unattached sex life is also a kind of yagna, because the restricted householder sacrifices general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life. So this is also yagna. So the householder sacrifices objects of senses, the fire of senses. So which means that he basically follows certain rules and regulations, the regulative principles, etc. So that, and that is his yagna. For brahmachari, hearing process, sense control, everything like more stringent, and the householder, it can't be so stringent, because you have to deal with this world and deal with so many things which are may or may not be absolutely required. So they sacrifice the objects of senses. So they do in that way. Sarvani karmani prana karmani chapare atma samyamya yogagnau juvati gnana dipite. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization to control the mind and senses offer the functions of all senses in the life breath as oblations into the fire of the control mind. Now, what is this? Prabhupada is saying the yoga system conceived by Patanjali is referred to herein. So this is life breath and all that. So this is yoga. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, the soul is called Pratyagatma and Paragatma. As long as the soul is attached to sense enjoyment, it is called Paragatma. But as soon as the soul becomes detached from sense enjoyment, it is called Pratyagatma. The soul is subjected to functions of 10 kinds of air at work within the body. And this is perceived through the breathing system. The Patanjali system of yoga instructs one how to control the functions of the body's air in a technical manner, so that ultimately all the functions of the air within become favorable for purifying the soul. So this soul is floating in this 10 kinds of air, and this whole Ashtanga yoga, Patanjali yoga, pranayama, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, all this is to actually control the functions of this air with breathing. controlling the breathing process, so that ultimately the air within becomes favorable for purifying the soul. So that control of the air is what this pranayama system or this Ashtanga yoga system attempts. According to this yoga system, Pratyagatma is the ultimate goal. This Pratyagatma is withdrawn from activities in matter. Uh, Pratyagatma means basically one is detached from sense enjoyment. So not simply some physical activity or asana. The senses interact with the sense objects like the ear for hearing, eyes for seeing, nose for smelling, tongue for tasting, hand for touching, and all of them are thus engaged in the activities outside the self. They are called the functions of prana vayu. Okay, so prana vayu, there are 5 kinds of vayu, main ones. Prana is what controls the overall respiration. Apana is the vayu which goes downwards. Vyana is acts to shrink and expand. Samana actually is equilibrium and it also affects digestion. Udana is in the upper gut. So anyway, so these are different types of vayu. But so the whole idea is in the Ashtanga yoga process. One is to control these airs that automatically makes one person healthy, but they are not doing it for that. Ideally, they should be doing it for searching for self-realization. So controlling the air so that then they can go to the next level of understanding who they are, etc., etc. And so that is the whole process of Ashtanga yoga. Krishna is saying, okay, some people also engage in this Ashtanga yoga process. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so there are 3 more verses. 4.28 Dravya yagnastapo yagna yoga yagnastapare swadhyaya gnana yagnascha yatayah samshita vrataha. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. These sacrifices may be fitted into various divisions. There are persons who are sacrificing their positions in the form of various kinds of charities. In India, the rich mercantile community or princely order open various kinds of charitable institutions like Dharmashala, Annakshetra, Atidhishala, Anathalaya, and Vidyapita. In other countries too, there are many hospitals, old age homes, and similar charitable foundations meant for distributing food, education, medical treatment, feed to the poor. All these charitable activities are Dravyamaya Yagna. There are others who for higher elevation in life or for promotion to higher planets within the universe voluntarily accept many kinds of austerities, such as Chandrayana, Chaturmasya. The process entails severe vows for conducting life under rigid rules. For example, under Chaturmasya vow, candidate does not shave for 4 months during the year. He does not eat certain foods, does not eat twice in a day, or does not leave home. Such sacrifice of the comforts of life is called Tapomaya Yajna. There are still others who engage themselves in different kinds of mystic yogas like Patanjali system or Hatha Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. And some travel to sanctified places of pilgrimage. All these practices are called Yoga Yajna, sacrifice for a certain type of perfection in the material world. There are others who engage themselves in studies, Swadhyaya, of Vedic literature, specifically Upanishads and Vedanta Sutras. All of these are called Swadhyaya Yajna or engagement in the sacrifice of studies. All these yogis are faithfully engaged in different types of sacrifice and are seeking a higher status of life. So by doing all this, everybody wants to make progress, just that they don't know what is next or how many steps are there. In Krishna consciousness, we are so fortunate. We are very clear what we are doing and where we will go. Krishna consciousness cannot be obtained. Okay, there is this higher status of life. Krishna consciousness, however, is different from these because it is direct service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by one of the above mentioned types of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. So this is very important. All these other spiritual activities that are there, it will not give us bhakti. We have to slowly, these people have to slowly make progress, slowly study, then finally come to the path of bhakti. Because that bhakti can be given only by the Lord or his and or his devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendent. So there are these different kinds of things. So we might also be engaged in doing some yagna, in doing some homa, this, that, and all that. We should understand these are all not directly, as in, if you are doing it for pleasure of Krishna, then it's okay. But still, for Kali Yuga, Sankirtana yagna is the best. Because these will not be perfect, because there are so many factors, to determine whether we will, whether we have done it properly or not. But in Sankirtan Yagna, it's pretty easy, simple. Apani juvati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapanagati rudhva pranayama parayanaha apare niyata hara pranan praneshu juvati. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others curtailing the eating process offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. Okay, so again, this is system of yoga for controlling the breathing process called pranayama, and in the beginning it is practiced in the hatha yoga system through different sitting postures. All of these processes are recommended for controlling the senses and for advancement in spiritual realization. This practice involves controlling the airs within the body so as to reverse the directions of their passage. Kumbhaka, Rechaka, all that is there. The apana air goes downward, prana air goes up. Pranayama yogi practices breathing the opposite way until the currents are neutralized into puraka or equilibrium. Offering the exhaled breath into the inhaled breath is called rechaka. When both air currents are completely stopped, one is said to be in Kumbhaka yoga. Okay, we don't need all this. By practice of Kumbhaka yoga, one can increase the duration of life for perfection in spiritual realization. The intelligent yogi is interested in attaining perfection in one life without waiting for the next. For by practicing Kumbhaka yoga, the yogis increase the duration of life by many, many years. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, automatically becomes the controller of the senses. His senses, being always engaged in the service of Krishna, have no chance of becoming otherwise engaged. So at the end of life, he is naturally transferred to the transcendental plane. So Prabhupada makes it sound very easy here. If provided, that is why it should be ashram. This is very difficult in individual homes. If it is ashram, if you convert the house to ashram, meaning we really live like it is a temple, then it is possible. Because in temple, this is what they do all the time. They're just engaged in service of Krishna, so they have no chance of becoming otherwise engaged. But for us, there is a lot of struggle, grastas, in terms of consciousness, how the environment in the house is, how much support we are getting from the rest of the people, so many issues. So since he's anyway, so he's saying, Prabhupada is saying, consequently makes no attempt to increase his longevity. These yogis want to increase longevity because they take time to achieve perfection. For bhaktas, it's not required. He's at once raised to the platform of liberation. Mam cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate suvarnanan samata ityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in unalloyed devotion service to the Lord transcends the modes of material nature and is immediately elevated to the spiritual platform. So we have to engage in unalloyed devotion. Unalloyed means pure. A Krishna conscious person begins from the transcendental stage and he's constantly in that consciousness. Prabhupada is saying, a very tall order, constantly in that consciousness. Therefore, there is no falling down. Ultimately, he enters into the abode of the Lord without delay. The practice of reduced eating is automatically done when it's only Krishna prasadam or food which is offered first to the Lord. Reducing the eating process is very helpful in the matter of sense control. And without sense control, there is no possibility of getting out of material entanglement. So both quantity also, not only just eating Krishna prasadam, but along with that also controlling the quantity. We should not overeat. Okay, so why all this discussion? Krishna is concluding here. Sarve piyete yagna vido yagna kshapita kalmashaha yagna shishtamrata bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifice, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. So the whole idea is for people to make advancement. So these are all anyway lower stages, right? So let's see what Prabhupada is writing in the book. On the foregoing explanation of different types of sacrifices, it is found that the common aim of all is to control the senses. Sense gratification is the root cause of material existence. Therefore, unless and until one is situated on a platform apart from sense gratification, there is no chance of being elevated to the eternal platform of full knowledge, bliss, and life. Sachidananda. This platform is in the eternal atmosphere or Brahman atmosphere. All the above mentioned sacrifices help one to become cleansed of the sinful reactions of material existence. By this advancement in life, not only does one become happy and opulent in this life, but also at the end he enters the eternal kingdom of God, either merging into the impersonal Brahman or associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is all for that advancement, basically. So and different process will take different amount of time. There might be more stages, etc. But in Krishna consciousness, it is very direct process. So either we can take the direct process or indirect process. Indirect process means karma yoga, gnana yoga. This is indirect process in that sense. But Krishna consciousness is direct, because we are directly serving Krishna. Then we will be happy in this life also, and at the end of the life we will go back to Krishna. So, but the idea of all the other practices or routes, etc., which are given by the Vedas, is finally to come to Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, without bhakti, we cannot achieve Krishna. We can achieve Brahman, not Krishna. Okay, I think we will. Okay, yeah. Take it from 4.22, I think. 4.22. Yeah, 4.22 to 4.22. Okay, anybody has any questions?
Yes, Ro, I have a question.
Yeah.
So it is mentioned that everything which exists is actually existing in Brahma Jyoti. And if it is covered by illusion, that is matter, right?
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then when we engage in Krishna conscious activities, then even the matter can become spiritualized, right?
Yeah.
So when we say that, then even the Brahma Jyoti, which is basically considered spiritual, so why do people return from Brahma Jyoti? Although there is no activity, that we agree.
That is a problem. That is the only problem. That is the main problem. That there is no activity, that there is no service. So they have to engage as a soul has to be engaged in some activity. Because in Brahmajyoti there is no activity, then they come back to do some activity. What activity will you get in this material world? Normally, very easy for them to get engaged in this kind of welfare activity, social welfare activities. Yeah, so technique, that is the main reason, that there are no activities is the main reason for the problem.
Okay.
It's not so much about the nature of spirit versus matter as much as lack of activity. And naturally, activity in this material world is, because they'll come in the mode of goodness mostly will be all these social welfare activities.
Yeah.
Okay. So we conclude. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Samaveta Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.